I get off at 7 in the morning, like any other night shift. 12 hours of fluorescent hum, beeping monitors, and the quiet panic of people who come alive after midnight. Some nights you can lock the job away in a drawer and walk out feeling lighter. Some nights the drawer sticks. This was one of those nights that stuck. My car was the only one left in the staff lot. The sky was the hard, thin color of glass, pale, not quite morning. My phone battery was low, my hands still smelled faintly of patient soap. I wanted one thing: drive home, shower, sleep. The highway between the hospital and my apartment is the kind that forgets you if you blink. Long stretches of dark, dotted with the occasional farmhouse and the red blink of a railroad crossing. It was the kind of road that makes you lower the radio and listen to the tires. Maybe a mile out, a set of high beams came up behind me, then fell back as if someone had decided to follow my speed. I drove normal, not fast, not slow, and every time I glanced in the rearview, the headlights stayed there. A polite tale, annoying but explainable. I told myself stories, a worker going the same way, a stranger making an early commute. When the highway narrowed and the tree line leaned close, I took the next wide shoulder to let the car pass. The headlights slowed. The car stayed tucked behind me. I pulled back onto the road, thinking the other driver would go around. He didn't. He stayed right behind me, close enough that I could see the two round reflections of his headlights in my mirror, like a pair of eyes. Close enough that when I turned my signal on and changed lanes, he mirrored me. Signal, move, same speed. It felt childish at first, as if someone was playing a game. Then it felt deliberate. At the next light, I let traffic move, and the car zipped around me. I exhaled. Relief came like steam off coffee. The gap widened. I turned the radio up for the quiet of the next stretch. Then, just outside of town, where the street lamps stopped and the world narrowed to black and the road's white line, the same car eased back in front of me, and then, impossibly, slowed down to exactly my speed. My headlights washed the back of a dark sedan. No tail lights, no plate, no brand badge, just a flat, matte surface that absorbed the light like soot. I thought about pulling into a gas station, but the next one was miles away, and my apartment was closer. I told myself I'd be fine. I told myself a lot of things on that road. The first weird thing happened with the radio. My playlist, something I'd left on shuffle before the shift, skipped like a needle, and the song dumped into dead air. Static. Then, superimposed over the static, I heard a voice on the other side of my speakers. Soft, close, like a breath. Not a recording, not a radio station, just a whisper of my name. "You're almost home," it said. I slammed the power and the music cut out. The street outside stayed the same, black, the white line gone smooth under the tires. My chest tightened. I told myself exhaustion made me hear things. The car in front matched me again. Every time I checked my mirror, its two headlight circles were there, like watchful coins. I started to take every small movement as a sign. I rolled my window down to crack. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. To hear the road, to remember I was alive. The night air was cold. The trees made a low scratching sound. When I accelerated to pass a slow farm truck, the car in front accelerated too. When I slowed to let a deer cross, it slowed with me. It felt like driving with a shadow that had hands and a steering wheel. I considered pulling into the next 24-hour lot and calling someone. Call who? Police? My roommate? Both felt dramatic. The stranger wasn't doing anything illegal. He was simply refusing to leave. I decided to try something small and cruel, I flipped my high beams on and off twice in quick succession, a common signal for go ahead. The other car answered with one flash. Not enough. One flashback doesn't say, I'll pass. It says, I saw you. At the next four-way stop, an old pickup idled by the corner. The driver leaned out, cigarette glowing. I slowed, hoped the pickup would wedge between us and break this, whatever it was. The other car remained directly behind me. When we both went through the intersection, the pickup pulled away. Someone waved thanks at me like I'd done nothing special. I did nothing, because if you interrupt something that feels hungry, you don't know what you're interrupting. It's a stupid cliché, but my breath smelled like antiseptic and fear at once. I called my roommate with one thumb while keeping one hand on the wheel. Hey, I'm being followed. I'm gonna take 45 to Route 6, okay? He replied, sleepy. Call the cops. The map on my screen said Route 6 would cut me closer to home, but also cut deeper into the dark. I chose to risk distance for the sake of options. I wanted exits, lights, places to run if needed. The other car turned with me. He turned like he'd remembered my route before I did. I tried a trick I'd read about once. I made 3 unnecessary lane changes, then pulled into a quieter supermarket parking lot with a few cars under a weak sodium lamp. My hands shook so hard I could hear them in the wheel. I sat. The other car eased to a stop at the far end of the lot and killed his engine. For the first time since this started, I could see his shape in the dim light. A sedan. Older. Boxy. Matte finish. No identifying features. No one came out. No one moved. He sat like a thing waiting. I told myself, if it stayed, I'd walk into the store and make a scene. I opened my door and stepped out with the phone in my hand, ready. The parking lot was the sound of my own shoes and the hum of the lights. I walked to the shopping cart corral, turned, and the sedan's driver's side window was down. He was sitting very still, head bowed, hands on the wheel, like the rest of the country had been paused and someone had left their skeleton in the driver's seat. I couldn't see his face. I couldn't see anything behind the windshield. For a second, my chest loosened. Maybe it was empty. Maybe he'd gone inside. Maybe this was a prank. Then the car's door opened with a soft creak and a silhouette slid out. A shape that moved too smoothly for a person. He or it moved like you'd expect from someone watching practice footage and trying to mimic a natural gait. It walked toward me in a rhythm that matched my own steps. My throat turned to gravel. I was close enough to see one thing. Its head tilted the exact same way I had tilted mine when I used to listen to patients' monitors. The small, unconscious tilt that makes you look intent. It was mimicking posture, breathing, movement. I really don't know how I didn't run. Maybe I did, and my legs didn't catch up. Maybe I was curious in a way that makes people do stupid things. I lifted my hand and waved my fingers once. The figure raised its hand and matched me, finger for finger, the same hesitation, the same angle. Every micro motion I made, it mirrored. My heartbeat drummed in my ears. I had an awful clarity in that moment. This thing was cataloging me, learning me, waiting to be me. When someone else pulled into the lot, a delivery van with a radio on, the figure froze and turned its head to look at the van. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, it turned back to me and went inside the car in one smooth motion, closing the door without a sound. The engine remained off. The parking lot went ordinary again. The delivery guy tossed a package and left. I stood in the sodium glow and realized I'd been holding my breath the whole time. I walked quickly to my car, shut the door, and locked it. The other sedan sat at the far end of the lot like a patient animal. I texted my roommate a single line: "Don't be home." "Don't be home," he replied a second later with a string of expletives and a one-word call. I dialed 911 with my thumb trembling. The operator asked my location, my description, and whether I was in immediate danger. I said yes and no at the same time. The dispatcher told me help was on the way and to stay put. I waited 10 minutes, which felt like hours. In my mirror, the sedan's headlights blinked twice and then went dark. When the patrol car rolled into the lot, lights flashing soft blue, the sedan was gone. No tracks in the gravel, no skid marks, no sign it had ever existed at all apart from my memory and the way my body shook. The officer took my statement with a professional calm and said, "We've had reports in this county before. People see things that stalk them, then vanish." "We'll keep an eye out," I nodded and thanked him and lied. I said I'd drive home with a patrol car following. He nodded and left me with a radio's distant crackle. I drove the rest of the way home with the windows down. The night smelled like wet asphalt and the sound of my tires eating the white line. I kept glancing at the rearview, expecting to see those 2 headlight coins. They never came. When I finally unlocked my door and stood under my porch light, I realized I was shaking from some place deeper than fear. The hollow that opens when you register that there's a pattern you don't understand. It's been months. I avoid that long stretch at night when possible. I don't let anyone tailgate me. I park under lights. Sometimes when I lie awake after a shift and the house hums around me, I test my hands in the dark. I make a small gesture, lift a finger, shrug, and wait. There's a childish curiosity in me that still wants to know if something across the road sees me and copies. To this day, I have no idea what it wanted. Me to teach it how to be human, to choose a life to wear? I don't know. All I know is how it felt. Like someone watching your life through a window, learning the shape of you until the sunlight comes and the window fogs over. Maybe I'm being melodramatic. Maybe I was too tired. Maybe there's an ordinary explanation. But I stopped thinking those things convinced me of anything. If there's one rule I follow now, it's simple. On those long, dark roads, keep your radio on, keep moving, and never, ever let someone match your rhythm. I've been driving rideshare in Detroit for a few years, mostly night shifts. I've dealt with drunk bros, lost tourists, and more than my share of strange requests. But what happened one night in November 2020 still sticks with me. Late at night, around 11:30, a drizzle slicked the streets, and the city felt hollow. I'd just finished a pickup downtown and was heading toward Midtown when the app pinged me for a ride near an old diner on Woodward. I pull up and see nobody, so I'm about to cancel. Then a guy steps out of the shadows, straight toward my car. No phone, nothing in his hands, just walks right up and opens the back door. He's maybe mid-30s, hood up, dark coat, jeans, calm. Too calm. He slides in and says, "Flat, north side." I check the app. No destination, just a ghost ping. I ask, "Street name?" He shakes his head. "Just drive." I'll tell you when to turn. My gut tells me to refuse, but I figure I'll at least get a few blocks down and reassess. We head out. Streets are mostly empty. He doesn't touch his phone, doesn't talk, just stares out the window, scanning. 10 minutes in, I try to make small talk. Nothing. Finally, I ask, "You sure you want me to keep driving?" He says, "Left here." I take the turn. The area's rough, alleys on either side, run-down buildings, no one around. He keeps looking, quick glances behind us and into shadows. I start thinking, no rear dash cam, my mace under the seat, crowbar tucked away. The tension is thick. Then, At a red light, headlights flare behind us. A cruiser. In a heartbeat, he yanks the door open and bolts across the street, disappearing into an alley. The light changes, the cruiser rolls past. I just sit there, frozen, then drive home, keeping my doors locked. Next morning, scrolling the local news, I see his face. Wanted for assault, using fake rideshare requests to find victims. I realized how close it had come. I reported it to the company, sent the timestamp and screenshots, but never heard back. I still drive at night, still get strange pings, but now I never start a ride without the name matching and confirming the passenger first. The quiet ones can be the scariest. I was 21, fresh off the last final of junior year, sliding my duffel and half-eaten snacks into the trunk like I'd done 100 times before. I chose the scenic route home because I needed the headspace. Highway 276 cuts through the Blue Ridge like it knows how to hush you. Sunset had already bled behind the ridges. That purple-grey light made the trees look too close, like they were leaning in to listen. My Civic was doing what it always did. Steady, forgettable, obedient. Windows cracked, music low, hand on the wheel. There's a calm to driving at that hour that feels like a safe smallness. You and the road, and nothing else demanding anything from you. And then she appears. She's on the shoulder, maybe 20 yards ahead, arms half raised like she can't decide if she's waving or trying to hold herself together. Jeans, a tank, hair hanging in a wet mess on her shoulders. Headlights catch the streaks on her face, salt lines from crying. My chest tightens with that immediate, reflexive readiness you get when someone clearly needs help. I pull over, roll down the passenger window. "You okay?" I ask. She walks up to the car like she's counting steps. "I lost my phone," she says. "I was walking, and it fell back in the grass. I need to call someone." Her voice is small and raw in the open air. There's no fake in it. There's a kind of exhausted honesty that makes you drop your guard. I unlock the doors. "Flashlight in the glove," I tell her. She slides into the passenger seat, and we step out to search. We walk back together along the shoulder, beam cutting through the grass. She's sweeping the light, slow and methodical, but her eyes keep flicking to the tree line, not down where the light is, but into the dark between trunks. I make a joke to break the tension. Maybe it crawled off and joined a squirrel colony. And she smiles, a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. She's still watching the trees. When I look where she's looking, I see it. A shape half hidden behind a pine, hardly more than a suggestion of a shoulder, a head. It shifts. Not much, just a twitch, like adjusting to get a look. That twitch flips everything in my chest from mild concern to something colder. I take a step back. "Were you walking alone?" I ask. She doesn't answer. She takes one big, automatic step away from me. The sound starts then. Feet in the dark, multiple sets, gravel crunched, twigs snapped, a surround sound of people trying not to be heard. It's the kind of noise that fills behind you and makes the skin on the back of your neck stand up. I don't wait to confirm anything. Keys already in my hand, I sprint to the car. My feet hit the Civic's rubber mat, and I throw the door shut, slam the lock with the heel of my hand, and the engine roars like it's trying to help me outrun the feeling. I put the car in gear and peel out, tires whining, neighbor trees blurring. When I look in the rearview, there's nothing. The shoulder where she'd stood is empty. The tree line the same indifferent black. Maybe they were kids doing a prank. Maybe my brain stitched a story out of two unrelated things. Maybe. But my stomach is a stone now. and it doesn't lighten until the gas station lights of a town 20 minutes away stitch themselves into the horizon. At the station, I park, jump out, check the back seat with the flashlight, under the seats, the trunk, the whole car. Nothing. I don't tell the attendant. I don't tell anyone. I call my mum, voice steadier than I feel, saying I'm almost there. Her voice on the line is ordinary, and I cling to that ordinariness like it's a raft. Morning shows up slow. I postpone the unpacking because my hands are still buzzing with adrenaline, and I keep expecting something to step out from between the boxes in my hatchback. When I finally open the trunk to pull the duffel, I see them. 2 sets of footprints in the damp patch of grass by the passenger door. One set is small, bare, toes splayed, shallow prints that stop at the tire line. The other is the deep tread of a work boot, big enough to make me feel like the ground under my feet shrank a little. Neither is mine. I stand for a long time, looking at those prints like they'll rearrange themselves into sense if I stare hard enough. They don't. The small, bare prints are the size you'd expect for a girl my age. The boot print looks older, heavier. They intersect like 2 people crossed paths in a pause that lasted only long enough to be uncanny. I told myself later it was pranksters. I told myself maybe I'd stopped and someone had asked for help and then split. I told myself a lot of things that sounded reasonable until the memory of her eyes, the way they kept drifting back to the trees, pushed those explanations into the corner where rational things go to look small. I don't take that stretch of Highway 276 anymore. If I have to pass through the mountains at night, I pick the interstate, the bright, the speed, anything that keeps the trees from leaning in. Sometimes on quiet nights, I still see a flash of a tank top in my head, the quick movement behind a pine, and I imagine those 2 sets of footprints, one barefoot, one booted, and what it means when the dark close to the road is more than just trees. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe you'd have done the same thing I did. Maybe you'd say I overreacted. But when the world is that still and someone's standing on the shoulder with tears on her face, and the trees aren't just trees anymore, I don't risk learning what's on the other side of that tree line